With Ultra Sun and Moon coming right around the corner, I'm finding it hard for myself to get even a tad bit excited for their release. Now this is probably due to multiple reasons. Some of that might be due to me not seeing too much from these games, and maybe I just need to wait to play them to actually see what's changed. And another part of that might be due to me just simply wanting to play different games as of right now, like Splatoon 2 or the upcoming Samus Returns. But I've noticed something else that I've been mentioning quite an awful lot lately to people in private conversations, as well as even in some of my shiny videos. Considering how legendaries are shiny locked in this game, and I really hope that changes in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, but I have no faith in that actually happening. Last time I got faith in something like that happening was the release of these two games, actually, and it didn't happen, so not holding my breath on that. And I would be doing some more interesting hunts rather than just Masuda method, but at the exact same time, everything is shiny locked in this game. Shiny lock Cosmog piece of crap? Okay, I don't even care about you. Cutscene continuity, everyone. Initially, I was just simply gonna poorly sing something to the tune of a well-known George Michael song to briefly summarize my confusion about the shiny locks mere existence. However, it turns out I missed seeing a video that the Supreme Arcanines ended up making about one particularly interesting interview that YouTube user NudiTuff actually had with Junichi Masuda and Shigeru Omori of Game Freak. In it, NudiTuff asked two questions about legendaries and shiny locks in particular. First one being, what makes you decide whether a Pokemon in-game will be able to become shiny? I mean, certain legendaries especially are not able to become shiny. Why the decision to prevent players from getting certain Pokemon in their shiny form? To which Junichi Masuda responds, it's all about balance. Legendaries are already extremely rare Pokemon. To then make it shiny in addition to that would make it even more special than special. I think there needs to be a certain balance, and concerning Pokemon which can or can't be shiny, it's also about maintaining balance to deliver a rare Pokemon. After all, if everyone had shinies, shinies would become the standard form. And NudiTuff then responds with the following question. Speaking of that, there are legendaries which are currently unobtainable as shinies in-game, but then during events are distributed as shinies. Everyone then has that shiny Pokemon. Doesn't precisely that affect the rarity of the shiny Pokemon? Junichi Masuda laughs and says, certainly. As you say, everyone can have one, but it's more about creating a memory or souvenir for people who attended the event and seeing that Pokemon reminds them of the event. Now, the problem that Game Freak is trying to solve here isn't actually something that is a small issue. I've been hearing a lot more people as of late coming out and saying that they don't really find too much interest in legendary Pokemon nowadays, or they lost their sense of wonder and mysteriousness and whatnot that they used to have. So from that perspective, I can see what kind of problem they're trying to solve, but shiny locking Pokemon is honestly not going to do a dang thing in order to actually fix this problem. And one of those reasons is actually brought up by NudiTuff's second question about event distributions. And most of these event distributions aren't something that was actually unique, like the Japan Arceus event, where there was a crap ton of Arceuses that were distributed via a serial code that people ended up getting through pre-ordering tickets to the Hoopa movie that was releasing back then. And randomly, you could get a serial code for a shiny Arceus. But most of the time, Game Freak doesn't like to do events like that. Instead, it's something stupid like the Tapu Koko event that happened recently, where people can just connect online, they only have to press a few buttons, and then they've got their shiny guaranteed. No luck, no skill involved, you just get it with no effort. And when people are just getting these shinies with absolutely no effort, then doesn't the shiny form of the legendary technically become the standard form like Game Freak doesn't want to begin with? That's a big reason that people don't like shiny Gyarados, because it's just given to you within the course of Gold, Silver, and Crystal, as well as Heart Gold and Soul Silver. You don't really have to do anything special to get that Gyarados. Also, even if they didn't do shiny locks on Pokemon, shinies would never become the standard form anyway. You know why that is? Because in Gens 2 through 5, the shiny chance was a 1 in 8,192 chance. In other words, pretty freaking rare. Now yeah, you'll get some shiny hunters telling you that that chance has been doubled up to 1 in 4,096, but that is still a less than 1% chance. And if you're factoring in stuff like the shiny charm, it's still going to be a less than 1% chance that anything comes up shiny to begin with. So really, if we're looking at this from the perspective of a casual player that doesn't really get into shiny hunting, doesn't get into competitive whatsoever, 9 times out of 10, actually even more than 9 times out of 10, they will never see a shiny Pokemon pop up, especially not a shiny legendary. When speaking of these event distributions where the Pokemon is guaranteed to be shiny, how the heck is a memory or a souvenir created just from getting it from the internet and then going to some random guy in a Pokemon Center? I have more memories with something like Uncle Bernie, honestly. Are you telling me that I can't ever have an Uncle Bernie just by hunting stuff?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's Uncle Bernie. It's Uncle Bernie. Oh, you heard Uncle Bernie. Oh, my God, you heard Uncle Bernie. Oh.
I also have way more memories attached to pretty much any legendary that I've ended up catching at this point, considering I started out as someone who sucked at catching legendary Pokemon back in Black 2, I believe it was. In fact, my whole entire party had almost fainted because I just did not plan out a good enough strategy for catching Terrakion back in that day. I had to resort to using my Master Ball, and I didn't feel good about doing that. So you know what I did? I got better at catching these legendaries. First, it started off really small, like getting a Sableye to go up against a Uxie, because Uxie had nothing in its moveset to actually hit a Sableye, so it was the perfect way to make sure nothing else in my team had fainted. And then gradually over time, I started getting better and better at shiny hunting things. I started using moves like False Swipe. I started trying to actually get a harvest strategy going on with Exeggutor. And eventually, it even came back to the point where I went back to Heart Gold and caught myself a Rayquaza through a Smeargle strategy where I skill swapped own tempo onto it, so that way Confusion from Outrage would not make it kill itself in the end. That whole experience, I actually have way more memories with than any of these events that they give through any sort of distribution. I also have more memories of other people getting their shinies, like Aurora Lights, for example. I remember singing an entire song for her because she was just getting so frustrated with the fact that Kyogre just simply wouldn't shine for her at all for 5 years. And I remember her thoroughly enjoying that song that I sang for her, as well as the fact that she kinda referenced it in her Shiny Kyogre video when she finally did get the dang thing.
Oh my god, Reese, you are gonna be so happy, so I'm gonna do this right now. Purple! That was especially for you!
I also remember some person failing their shiny Giratina in probably one of the dumbest ways I could think of, honestly.
I've been practicing for this for a long time. I'm gonna use Bide.
12 seconds later.
What?! Oh my god!
And again, what memory comes from just getting something handed to me from a guy in a Pokemon Center? Also, I don't get at all why Ultra Beasts are even subject to this sort of shiny locking if keeping the initial encounter special is the reason behind it. Because there's multiples of each Ultra Beast. Like, there's obviously multiple Nihilego, we can see that from cutscenes in the game, and even outside of those cutscenes. You are actually required to catch multiple Pheromosa, multiple Xurkitree, multiple Celesteelas, multiple Kartana, multiple Buzzwole. You have to catch multiples of most of the Ultra Beasts. So how the heck is an Ultra Beast special when you've got multiples of each one. The first one you encounter might be special, yeah, sure. But every single Ultra Beast that you encounter after that? How is it special? Especially when they don't even have overworld models for you to actually go and interact with. You just encounter them as you would any other random wild Pokemon. Like, they're honestly just not special from a legendary perspective whatsoever. Especially when you consider that the catch rates of some of them, like Pheromosa and Kartana for example, they're as easy to catch as a Caterpie. If you haven't caught those things, go chuck a Pokeball at them, see what happens. You'll probably succeed. Now maybe some people might be saying that what Game Freak is trying to do is disincentivize people from hunting certain shiny Pokemon. But in all honesty, there's certain shiny Pokemon that people wouldn't hunt regardless because they just look awful to them. I've had people tell me that shiny Giratina looks awful to them and that they would probably never hunt that. There's even people who don't like shiny Groudon very much, just simply because it looks like it's snot green in some generations. And in the case of Regice in Gen 6 and 7, it barely changes from the original coloring. And even in the case of some of these shiny locked Pokemon, I've heard of people that don't necessarily like Solgaleo or Buzzwole's shinies. So, do you honestly think people are going to spend the time to shiny hunt something that they just don't care for the shiny form of to begin with? And let's say a particular shiny has a really good shiny form going for it, and it just looks amazing. There is still a reason that at least the competitive crowd would not go after a shiny. It's just simply much harder to get a really good competitive shiny than it is to just get a regular legendary Pokemon with your preferred nature, your preferred IVs. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've tried to synchronize for a particular nature on a shiny legendary, and half the time, it just doesn't work. And the reason that that's the case is because synchronize has a 50% chance to fail whenever you use it. And because of that, the competitive crowd is usually guaranteed to soft reset their legendary at least once. Even with the addition of a guaranteed 3 perfect IV set on any given legendary that you catch, people are still going to need to soft reset for a particular nature, as well as the right IVs and the right stats. In some cases, like in Trick Room Creselia's case, people might want a soft reset for that 0 IV in speed, or a 0 IV in attack to take less damage from foul play or swagger. And 0 IVs are not guaranteed to come onto any given legendary Pokemon, and Hyper Training certainly doesn't help there either, because it only gives you perfect IVs. It doesn't give you crap IVs, it gives you perfects, and that's it. Personally, I think if Game Freak is ever going to be truly serious about making legendaries feel special again, they should honestly go back to the Gen 1 and 2 approach of a legendary, instead of the approach that we've been seeing from 2002 onwards. But obviously this isn't going to happen with Ultra Sun and Moon, because it's pretty obvious Necrozma is going to play a huge role in the story, and it's not going to be some weird minor role like it is currently. And it's funny, with all the pandering that they do to Generation 1 fans, it's funny that they don't understand how legendaries were actually encountered back then. It was very easy to miss all 3 of the legendary birds by the time you got to the Elite Four and the Champion. And even in the case of Johto, where you were very likely to encounter at least the legendary dogs and Ho-Oh and Lugia, there at least was some mystery behind it because you were the only one that could ever even have a hope of catching these things or controlling these things. Sure, you had Yucine that was following around Suicune, but when it came to actually catching Suicune, you were the only one that was able to do it. Yucine had no shot. And to be fair to Generation 3, the Regis I felt were also a really good trio of legendaries, because of how obscure they were. You had to read Braille in order to figure out what you were supposed to do in order to find them. That is, if you weren't using a guide. And the Regis to this day are still my favorite trio of legendaries, just simply because of how hard it is to actually find them without using a guide. Now when it comes to cover legends, on the other hand, that's when the value of legendaries starts going downhill, because it's pretty predictable when you're going to be able to get an opportunity to catch these things. In Gen 3, Archie and Maxie are reawakening Groudon or Kyogre for their own purposes, and then eventually, the power of said legendary Pokemon gets to be too much for them to actually control on their own, so they need you to come in and save the day for them. And so you pretty much end up catching Groudon or Kyogre right as soon as the villain arc basically ends. And this sort of trend has been continuing on ever since then. In Gen 4, Cyrus reawakens one of those cover legendaries, and then you get to catch one of them shortly after you defeat him. Gen 5, and reawakens one of the cover legendaries while you reawaken the cover legendary of your specific game in order to fight him. In Gen 6, Lysander is somehow able to take control of Xerneas or Yveltal to power the ultimate weapon. And then in Gen 7, Lusamine uses the power of the baby cover legend in order to accomplish her goal of opening up ultra wormholes. And in every single one of those instances, with the exception of Black 2 and White 2, because you don't catch Kyurem until post-game if I remember right, you always catch the cover legendary at the end of the team villain arc. Now, I'm not saying that Ruby and Sapphire are bad because they did this or anything, because, well, here's the thing. It was unique back when Ruby and Sapphire did it. But now that all these other games are doing it, it's not unique anymore. I've seen it a dozen times already. It's too predictable. Sun and Moon even take this a step further, at least in regards to Tapu Koko, by making it a mandatory battle right after you become the champion. So essentially, there's no exploration to go find this thing. There's no actual sort of side quest that you have to complete or anything like that. It's just, oh yep, here he is, you can battle him right now. Again, no extra effort even being put into getting these seemingly rare Pokemon. Now they're just being given to you like it's free candy. And honestly, all shiny locking really does in this entire case is just make people hate the legendaries even more, because you're taking away one thing that people actually like to do with legendaries, and now basically telling them that they can't do said thing with the legendaries. And at this point, it's gonna take a lot more than Solgaleo and Lunala poorly cosplaying as another legendary in order for me to even give a crap about them in the future. I felt overjoyed as a bloody moon shone right before my own eyes. As excitement grew, no one really knew shiny legends and the beasts would all be locked from view. I'm never gonna soft reset. Coded locks remove the purpose. Many know they're hard to get and often come prepared. I should have known better than to save my game and waste my time on locks so lame. So I'm never gonna soft reset the way I did before.